Hello, everybody. Welcome to a FiveStack edition on a Friday. It's Thanksgiving Friday. Dean and I had some crossed communications, so he landed up not being able to make it to this afternoon. But I'm here anyhow because I wanted to just give you an update on these big stories that are developing today. This is really a tremendous news day and tremendous news weekend as it's developing. We're learning so much more about the shooting in Washington, D.C., that has now killed one National Guards person, another person in critical condition. We also have lots of news about Pete Hegseth, breaking news out of Ukraine, and interesting news about X and its polarization on American society, or its effects of polarization on American society. I hope you're having a great Thanksgiving. It has been a great day off, although I spent most of it working on The Greatest Heist. You will read the next chapter of The Greatest Heist on Sunday morning. Chapter 4 is coming out of book 2, and it's a good one. I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed writing it. I hope you check it out. The Greatest Heist. It arrives on the Substack on narrative.org this Sunday, hopefully early morning, so you can have your Sunday cup of coffee and enjoy the read as well. As I'm running all this by myself today, a lot of my glances to the sides here because I'm going to have to do all the switching while I'm talking and all that stuff. But that's okay. It's worth it. It's good to spend time with you on this Thanksgiving. I hope you had a great few days with your family doing Thanksgiving-y things. Lots of turkey, lots of stuffing, whatever it is that you did. I hope you had a good one, and I hope it was a good moment to reflect on how far we've come from where we were, just a few months ago when this Trump administration first took office. Of course, there's a lot of work to do. These guys are not moving very quickly or anywhere in particular, but we're here to cover the news. We'll keep bringing you the truth. It's what Dean and I do every day at 3 p.m. with the FiveStack. And here we are bringing you the news on a Thanksgiving Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. Let's get into it. At number 5, the defense secretary, or the war secretary, call him what you will, Pete Hegseth, gave a direct verbal order before the first Caribbean boat strike in September. He said, kill everybody. This is a story in the Washington Post, an exclusive that really is unbelievable on its face. When 2 survivors were spotted clinging to the burning wreckage after the initial missile hit, the SEAL Team 6 commander ordered a second strike to fulfill Hegseth's instructions, and the 2 men were blown apart in the water. It's unbelievable. Former military lawyers say this amounts to murder and may constitute a war crime, since an order to kill those who can no longer fight is an order to show no quarter. Now, it's also come to everyone's attention that this has been a bit of a cover-up, because the Pentagon told Congress initially that the second strike was to remove a navigation hazard. Lawmakers now believe they were deliberately deceived. In fact, what they now believe is that Pete Hegseth gave this kill order to kill these innocent people who were in the Caribbean. We're not quite sure what they were doing, but he gave them the order, and that the SEAL 6 commander, SEAL Team 6 commander, was the person who actually issued the order to kill these 2 people who were clinging on for dear life onto their boat, which had initially been struck. This is a significant development, and obviously should lead to prosecution of both the war secretary and of the Team 6 commander here, because these are unlawful orders. And as we've been noting in the last few days, there has been a tremendous push by various Congress people to really remind the military soldiers, the people who are in the line of fire there, that they are not allowed to follow unlawful orders. They shouldn't be following unlawful orders. And this is the context in which we now have. I have not talked to Lev. Someone says, have I talked to Lev today? I have not. What is the major news? You tell me what it is, and I'll follow along with you guys. Okay, just I'm watching the chat. So if you guys have, everyone's saying that that Trump won't stand by Hegseth. I don't believe he will. I don't think he's going to stand by anybody. I think we saw it the other day with Kristi Noem. I think he is planning on ejecting these people, but these people still have to face the law at the end of the day. They're committing crimes left, right, and center on behalf of the president. And, whether he likes it or not, Hegseth has likely committed a murder. And whether Trump likes it or not, it's under his orders as well. So there is going to be a lot going on there. We will get to Zelensky, chief of staff for resignation. That is still coming up in the lineup today. We've got all the news covered. Don't you worry about it. Right here on FiveStack. I hope so. I hope I got all the news covered. I pride myself on that fact every once in a while. Let's get into the other big news of the day, which really involves the shooting in the National Guardsmen that happened on Thanksgiving, or just on Thanksgiving Eve. Let's catch you up on what the latest is there. So the Afghan refugee who killed the National Guard member Sarah Beckstrom and critically wounded Andrew Wolf was part of a CIA-backed paramilitary force known as Zero Unit. That's what Human Rights Watch labeled a death squad for widespread civilian killings during the nighttime raids in Afghanistan. So you remember these raids, awful, inhumane raids that happened during the Afghanistan war. And this guy, who was now moved to the United States under suspicious circumstances, was part of this Zero Unit responsible for these widespread civilian killings during these nighttime raids. A childhood friend says that Ramnullah Laknawal told him he could not tolerate seeing the blood and the bodies. CIA Director Ratcliffe now says the shooter should never have been allowed to come here, but American intelligence trained him, armed him, and evacuated him. That's one side of the story. Of course, there's a lot more to this, and I'll tell you what I recall about that whole period of time when that Afghan war was ended and America retreated. But in the meantime, I wanted you to listen to what President Trump said earlier as he's trying to frame this all about Joe Biden. This is an extraordinary statement by Donald Trump. Let's take a listen and see if we can hear what he says.
That did this is also in serious condition, but we won't even talk about him. As you may know, DHS has confirmed that the suspect is an Afghan national flown here by the previous administration, who was such a bad administration. And I have a picture of a plane. This is what it looked like when they came in. It was total bedlam. Do you remember that period of time? Total bedlam. People crammed onto the plane. And the toughest, meanest, most capable physically got on the plane, not the people that we were looking for or that they wanted to bring in. Here's a picture for you. Just take a look at that plane. Standing on top of each other and sitting on top of each other. This is what we had under the Biden administration. That whole thing should have never, ever happened. They should have left from a different base. They should have left from Bagram, as you know, and it would have been a much different story. But they didn't do that, and this was just a rout, just a terrible situation. This heinous atrocity reminds us that we have no greater national security priority than ensuring that we have full control over the people that enter and remain in our country. For the most part, we don't want them.
So here he is pivoting this whole conversation to immigration, saying we don't want them. So yet again, another dog whistle for anti-immigration people in America who are, don't see the economic reality that we need immigrants and that America is based on immigrants. But what he's doing is basically blaming the Biden administration for this killing. This killing of Sarah Beckstrom in D.C. was not the responsibility or not the fault of the Biden administration. It's the fault of Donald Trump's administration for sending in National Guards people to do everyday policing work in a city that it requires community policing and people are aware of how policing works. In fact, reports this afternoon suggest that it's now the Washington, D.C. police who will be going along with the National Guards people on all their patrols because it's no longer that safe for the National Guards people to go out alone. So in fact, the opposite of what was intended by Donald Trump, which was that the National Guard people would be bringing peace and safety to D.C., is actually happening. They're taking the police department officials and police department personnel away from the police department so they can guard the National Guardsmen. This is how lousy this administration is at formulating policy. But more than that, if you look back carefully at what the Biden administration did during that time, they had initially plans, the military had plans, and a large amount of Republican supporters in this wanted to bring all these people who worked with the United States military in Afghanistan back with them. This was part of the deal that was struck by Donald Trump himself, if I'm not mistaken, initially, but with the Taliban when he made that deal. So to blame to blame the Biden administration for that is lunacy, because in fact what the Biden administration did, if I recall this correctly, is they stopped the mass immigration of all these Afghan civilians who had been working with the American military. They stopped them and they put them through a very complicated and long staged process there, part of which is that plane, part of which is showing how, they weren't allowed on the plane with everybody else and that they were, in fact, sent to these intake centers and distributed through there. So to blame the Trump administration, the Biden administration for this is just another, falsehood, another fake lie, another continued gaslighting of the American people. There are reports today about whether, this is a false flag or not. Some people say, and there are claims that it is potentially looks like a false flag operation or something that was engineered by someone in order to create a result. Certainly the administration's pivot, the sudden pivot to it being about the Bidens and about immigration policy makes you wonder why they are reacting this way. Normally, in a situation like this, you would have an event happen. People would say, well, we're going to take a couple of days, we're going to figure out exactly what happened, and then we'll react right away once we know what happened. Instead, you've got them coming out, as they always do, gaslighting everybody, blaming the Biden administration, blaming the immigration policy, which is still their immigration policy, by the way, and now they're going to be looking at removing other people with green cards. Another attempt to suppress people, another attempt to oppress people, and make sure that people don't actually hear the truth about what's going on in the country, because there's such a forceful attempt to suppress opposition of any form. This earlier on today, a tweet from the USCIS director, Joseph Edlow. He says, at the direction of POTUS, I have directed a full-scale, rigorous re-examination of every green card for every alien from every country of concern. American safety is not negotiable. This is the USCIS director, Joseph Edlow. I don't know how they're going to go through a rigorous examination of every green card from every alien from every country of concern and what those countries are that are so concerning. It could be anything, but it certainly is a way to make people feel the pressure of this authoritarian government and an attempt to really remove responsibility from themselves. At the end of the day, it is Donald Trump that ordered the National Guards people into D.C. Everyone said this is not what they're equipped to do. It's not what they're trained to do. They shouldn't be doing it. They haven't been doing very much. In fact, they've just been going sort of on meaningless patrols over and over throughout the city. And now we know that it's taken the life of an American guardsman and critically injured another American. And Donald Trump is busy blaming another administration instead of taking responsibility for his own actions. This really is quite something. I'm just checking the comments here, making sure that you guys have any thoughts about this. I'll be happy to throw them in. Thanks for all your comments. Keep them coming. I like to keep abreast of what you guys are thinking of all these stories, because it's one of the great features of Substack is just being able to have immediate feedback. And I've worked in television for so many years. Never being able to talk to your audience is really annoying, because you only find out the next day whether they like the show or not when you get the ratings. It is so much nicer to be able to find out from you as you're watching what you think. Tell us your thoughts. Am I wrong? Am I right on some of my takes? Would you like to see more of a story? Do you have any questions on the story? Just ask the questions. And while you're at it, don't forget to keep hitting those hearts, smashing those hearts. I'm so terrible at this kind of stuff. And also that little square with the arrow, as Dean likes to talk about. Keep pressing those things. Dean, I miss you. I need you. I hope he's having a nice day. I really do. Let's get to the other big story of the day. I found this story incredibly fascinating. This is the X algorithm story. I don't know if you saw this in The Guardian today. A groundbreaking study published in Science reveals that tiny tweaks to Elon Musk's X algorithm can produce the same level of political polarization in 1 week that historically took 3 years to develop in America. I'll just repeat that sentence. It's kind of crazy that in just 1 week, they could change people's political polarization points of view in the same way that it would have taken 3 years before we had Twitter or X or any of these other social media accounts. Wow, it's crazy. Users exposed to slightly more divisive content showed dramatically increased hostility towards political opponents, and most didn't even notice their feeds had been altered. Musk's For You feed isn't showing you content, it's manufacturing your political reality. It's in fact giving you propaganda. And for those of you who've been with Narrative for a while, you would have known that about a year ago, I published a series of stories exposing how Elon Musk was actually getting some of this content from the Russian propaganda arm that fell directly under Vladimir Putin. And I showed you exactly through. I wish I had them here. I should have pulled them up, but they were on the site. If anyone wants to search for them, I showed you the diagrams connecting Elon Musk and the purchase of Twitter to the Kremlin, to Vladimir Putin, to his chief of staff, and to the guy who was heading the propaganda division underneath Vladimir Putin in the Kremlin. And I showed you evidence that Elon Musk was in fact retweeting at least one tweet that we found, a meme of Vladimir Zelensky, that he retweeted that on his own account. So there's evidence out there that this is not just propaganda. It's not just Elon Musk feeding you information. There's evidence out there showing that it's Elon Musk feeding you Russian disinformation, Russian propaganda, in an attempt to polarize America in the run-up to next elections. Now, that is election interference. I don't care what anyone else wants to say about it. It really is election interference by a foreign country. We've been reporting it for years. It happened in 2016. And just the other day, we had confirmation from an appeals court that said that Trump-Russia was not a hoax. Trump-Russia was not a hoax. It really happened. He was installed in 2016. He was installed again in 2024 through this operation by Elon Musk to change X, through these other really concerning things that happened through Starlink, through the bomb scares, through the campaigns that they were running in swing states in order to convince Americans to vote for Donald Trump and not for Kamala Harris. That's how we got to this presidency for a second time. It's Russian interference. And now we know that X has the capability of changing people's political mind within just a week. It is unbelievable that this thing is still allowed to operate in the United States. This is a Russian propaganda tool. It should come with one of those giant Surgeon General warnings on top of it. Your mind is being eaten away and you're not seeing the reality when you're watching this content. It really is fake shit. It's not real. It's not happening. And now we have the proof that it's being used to shape your political points of view, to shape your opinions. It's incredibly revealing that this science study has shown this. And it's going to raise a lot of questions once we get out of this, whether there's any culpability for Elon Musk, whether there's any culpability for anyone who was working at X and who was profiting from X. Are they going to be looked at as criminals in the near future, and should they be imprisoned? Elon Musk certainly said at one point he believes he was going to get thrown into jail for everything he'd done. Maybe he should have been. I mean, it certainly does look like Elon Musk's campaign for the Kremlin not only was very successful, but was a campaign for the Kremlin. There's just no other way around it. That's what they were building. That's what they were doing. That's how they installed a Manchurian candidate in the White House. At number 2 on the countdown today, this story is stunning and involves the person we were talking about earlier on. Andrei Yermak, Zelensky's closest confidant and lead negotiator with the United States, resigned just hours after anti-corruption officers raided his home and office. Yermak had just returned from Geneva, where he told Marco Rubio that Ukraine risked losing all U.S. support unless a controversial peace plan was rewritten. This is the most significant shakeup in Zelensky's inner circle since the war began at the worst possible moments. We have known that Yermak was under investigation for a long time. We have also known that he has been a loyal deputy to Zelensky, which raises a lot of questions about what's been going on in the government in Ukraine over a long period of time. But apparently $100 million in a kickback scandal in energy and defense sectors, $100 million, the two areas that are most sensitive as Ukrainians fight and freeze through the blackouts. The fact that there's a potential $100 million that have been involved in some sort of kick scandal as this war continues to rage, killing so many people. The concerning part around Zelensky, and this is where it gets really tricky for all of us who've been supporters and fans of Zelensky for so long. Zelensky's former business partner fled to Israel, 2 ministers resigned, and the former deputy prime minister has been jailed. Yermak was heading to Mar-a-Lago this weekend to finalize terms before Witkoff and Kushner meet Putin, and that'll be our number 1 story in just a minute. But just to underline the incredible significance of this story of Yermak being arrested sorry, not arrested, his home searched and him having to resign as part of this corruption raid means a dramatic shift in our understanding of how these peace talks are going to develop. If in fact there is a corruption angle here involving Yermak, then you have to question how these negotiations even got started, how we got even to the point where they're negotiating anything at all. Because if Yermak is being paid for, bought for by anybody, never mind if he's being paid for or bought for by the Russians, well, that changes a lot. So this is a significant development in what's been going on in Ukraine. Many of you will remember that there was a real chill that came up between the Biden administration and the Zelensky government towards the end of their term. And some people speculated that maybe it was a result of these new corruption allegations that have been popping up. So maybe, just maybe, that Ukrainian government has been doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. Maybe there's a much bigger corruption scandal that we're still going to find out about. And maybe there's a misuse of American funds there. Now, does that change the events? Does it really change what what happened in the past and what the future might be? It could indeed. I mean, you might think to yourself, well, if this was a massive corruption scandal that happened, and it involved basically getting American money for arms, and siphoning some of that away, who knows how it worked, in order to continue the sort of long lingering war, that the long lingering war was actually beneficial to some people. That becomes a real issue that people need to start investigating. I don't know the answers to those questions. I'm just throwing them out there. I just don't know whether who knows? Ukraine's never been a very clean country when it comes to corruption, and so it's dogged by a lot of corruption for decades now, really, maybe even centuries, but certainly decades. Ever since it was broke away from the Soviet Union, that there was a lot of corruption involved, and we know that the mob, the Russian-Israeli mob that we keep referring to, the mafia, as it were, that emerged out of the Soviet Union, actually came partly from Ukraine, and then was able to connect through Israel into the West. So it is, when you look at the genealogy of this mob, of this mafia, it's sort of interesting to see how it mirrors the thoughts we've had around how Trump was by the same sort of mafia, and how controlled he is by the same sort of mafia. So now Zelensky faces the biggest decision of his presidency. He needs to find someone to replace Yermak. He needs to also absolutely take away any doubts that people have about this peace process. This peace process needs buy-in by the Ukrainian people. It is, in fact, illegal for them to give away any land unless it's done by the constitution, unless it's done by voting. So the fact that these negotiations are even continuing on that premise is a little interesting, to say the least. Which brings us to the number one story on the countdown today. And Dean, come back. It's so much more fun doing it with you because I get to give amazing reactions. But we'll see. We'll see Dean on Monday. He's just taking. It's a miscommunication is why we're not here, because I said something and then he said, okay, yeah, whatever. And then he's, now here I am, all alone. But I'm not alone because I'm with you guys. It's nice to be here with you on a Thanksgiving Friday. The number one story. This is stunning. Donald Trump has dispatched and I can get rid of Yermak because we've seen enough of him. Donald Trump has dispatched Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff to Moscow with a direct offer to Vladimir Putin, formal U.S. recognition of Russia's control over Crimea and occupied Ukrainian territories. The President of the United States is actually sending his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his chief advisor, Steve Witkoff, who has ties to the Kremlin, who is tied himself to the Russian mob that we were just describing earlier on, is sending him to the Soviet Union, to Russia, Soviet Union, where am I, to offer formal U.S. recognition of Russia's control over Crimea and the Ukrainian territories. This is a surrender. This is America waving the flag of surrender for Ukraine. It is not our job to do that, nor is it something that the United States can do. It can't just say that we recognize that you have these territories, when in fact the Ukrainians have not ceded these territories. It's up to them. It's their land. That's how the world works. The Telegraph reports this breaks decades of American diplomatic convention that refuses to legitimize borders redrawn by force. And it does. European allies are alarmed, but Washington's message is blunt. One source said that Americans told them they can do whatever they want to do. And in fact, that's what they're doing. They're planning to offer recognition of Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, plus all these territories that are really contentious, like Kherson and Zaporizhia, which is where that nuclear energy base is. We have a real challenge here. This is in fact what's going on. The Trump administration is going to be handing out pieces of land to whomever they deem their friends, in this case Russia, just because they've decided to do it. Not only is a contravention of the Ukrainian constitution, but it just should send a shiver down the spine of every world leader around the world, because if they can do that in Ukraine, they can do it anywhere. So there's no doubt that today is going to cause a lot of consternation. And the fact that they're doing this on a Thanksgiving Friday with Kushner and Witkoff just secretly huddling away in Russia with this incredible give is just beyond belief. It's also in concert with what we just found out about the corruption scandal involving Yermak's resignation. It really raises questions about this entire process of supposed peace in Ukraine, whether it's legitimate at all, and whether it is really time for there to be a different way to approach everything. I'd love to get Lev on. I'm not sure if Lev's around. Let me ask him. I can ask Lev if he's got a minute. Let me ask. Are you on? Lev might even be part of the chat. I don't know. Sometimes he pops in, but because I'm doing this alone, I can't focus on so many things all at one time. Let's see what he says. I did ask him. Maybe he can join us. I would love to get his point of view on this. We've become a non-democratic state. We are pushing non-democratic ideas around the world. Dean will be back on Monday. Don't worry, everybody. Everything's going to be fine. Don't you worry about a thing. Okay, this isn't coming after 4. Okay. After 4, I'm... All right, and that's, I've asked him, I think it's going to be a little later. I'm going to hang around for a few minutes here. Maybe he can join us. It'll be great. Okay, so we'll just wait and see if he can join us. The thing that America has become is a calling card for dictators to basically approve their dictatorial and territorial claims of other countries. And it is so important that Americans call right now, call your Congress people, call everybody, and make sure that they know that this is not acceptable. This is not the policy that works for America. We're not the country that rubber stamps all these things. We're just not. And the fact that he is doing this incredible move to go to send Witkoff and to send Jared Kushner all the way to Russia to basically hand them all this independent territory is beyond belief. It's stunning to me that Trump would even consider that. It's stunning to me that the institutions in America are even contemplating supporting such a move. It is unacceptable. It is illegitimate, and it won't be recognized by the rest of the world, which would mean that the entire alliance that we have become to. Okay, so he can't do that. We might do something together in like 30 or 45 minutes. Maybe Lev and I will come back on and talk Ukraine in detail for a few minutes. So maybe you'll check us out back then. I'll say, okay, let's do that at 3. Let's do that when you're done. Okay. All right, so that is the big news today. Those are the top 5 stories. I wanted to join you because I hadn't updated the site for a couple of days, and again, Dean's not here because I screwed up, not because Dean's not here. But Dean will be back on Monday, and I'm sure he's watching. Maybe you're watching, Dean. Maybe you're not. And either way, I want to thank you all for being here today to talk about the top 5 stories that we've had today. It's such a reminder of how integrated the story really is. You know, we started off talking about the shooting of the National Guard people, and then Hegseth telling he's commanding people to kill people without authority in the Caribbean. And now we're ending the show with Ukraine and Russia without authority, the United States telling the Russians that they will recognize this territory they've basically been fighting over, that they will basically surrender on behalf of Ukraine. These are illegal things. These are not things that can be happening. And this Trump administration disregard for anything to do with the law, disregard for any international standards, rules, no matter what it is, they're continuously disregarding them. And now we're seeing, a potential murder by the defense secretary, by the secretary of war, or whatever he calls himself these days, in the Caribbean. But then this absolutely treasonous, anti-democratic thing that they're doing with Russia here, where they're basically handing over these territories of Ukraine and just giving them to the Russians. It's appalling. It's not the way things should be done. I'll be back with Lev Parnas in about 30 to 45 minutes. Thank you for being here on the mini FiveStack. I really appreciate your time today, and I hope you got a lot out of today's show. Don't forget the greatest heist, the next chapter, chapter 4 in our book 2, is so good. It's so good. You're gonna have to read it. It drops on Sunday, and it picks up where we left off last week with Maria Farmer's incredibly damning testimony and the beginning of the federal investigation into Epstein. And then this chapter picks up with the arrival of basically Darth Vader, Ken Starr, on the scene in Palm Beach, and how he dismantles this case is remarkable. Plus, there's news in there that you've not seen anywhere else, stuff we've been able to uncover during the research. You will love The Greatest Heist, book 2, chapter 4, when it drops on Sunday. And by the way, today, we have right now a Black Friday special going on. So if you want to subscribe to Narrative at 25% off the annual rate, or 25% off all the rates, if I'm not mistaken, now is the time to do it. It's till midnight tonight, the Black Friday special at narrative.org. Thank you for being here on the FiveStack. Thank you all, and I will see you in a bit with Lev.